What's up, guys? It's Benny. Breaking news. There has been another horrific terrorist attack, and it may be connected to ISIS here in the United States of America. 10 people have been killed in New Orleans when a vehicle that was rented just days ago drove through a large crowd on Bourbon Street. If you're not familiar with New Orleans, Bourbon Street is where huge numbers of people hang out and go and party and drink and live their lives and tend to do so happily. It is not a happy new year for these people or for the country, as everyone is gripped with what the FBI is calling a terrorist attack when a man drove through this large crowd of revelers. Again, there's going to be bowl games in New Orleans, right? There's going to be college football bowl games, a lot of people visiting there. There's always lots of tourists in New Orleans and people going to Bourbon Street. It's a very famous place. And this guy killed 10 people and then apparently got out of the vehicle, started shooting, and was wearing camo gear, tactical gear, trying to cause as much damage as possible. And we know who the suspect is now. We'll get all into it. Let's go to the breaking news. FBI probes ISIS link to New Orleans terrorist attack, slaughtered at least 10 people on Bourbon Street. Ladies and gentlemen, the FBI is now looking into whether the man who drove a truck into the New Year's revelers in New Orleans French Quarter, killing 10, had connections to ISIS because he had the ISIS flag on his vehicle. It was a Ford electric vehicle owned by a 42-year-old man from Houston, Texas. The truck has reportedly been rented out on Turo, which is a rental platform where you rent somebody's private vehicle, right? It's not like you go to a rental car lot. You actually just rent someone's vehicle that they own, and then you take it for a spin. The police are in contact with the owner who listed it for rent. There's nothing illegal about that. A lot of people use Turo. The gunman was killed by police when he slammed the truck into pedestrians celebrating on New Year's, started firing. The authorities investigating the mass casualty incident say the driver showed very intentional behavior driving into the crowds, the city of French Quarter, and then got out and started firing a weapon. Ladies and gentlemen, this is, of course, something that is a breaking news story. There are eyewitnesses who are recalling exactly what happened and how New Orleans did not use their iron barricades to protect the revelers on New Year's Eve, instead opting for flimsy yellow ones.
I mean, she was an older Hispanic woman, probably in her mid-30s. She had a wedding ring on her finger. We were that close.
I just didn't know if there were kids or, any kids around.
No, there was no small.
It was 3 a.m.
No small children.
Okay.
No small children. I mean, none in our area.
Right. Did you see, when you were looking down from the balcony, did you see the truck? Did you see the suspect?
Oh, he had been gone. That's what I was telling other news sources. Like, we have these hydraulic steel barriers from past events. Last Mardi Gras, this happened to an extent, maybe not terrorism, but still people getting hit in mass population with vehicles. Those barricades were not up, period. They had the flimsy orange ones that you could just push over with your finger. We actually thought it was kind of odd because usually when you get to Bourbon Street, you can turn your back to Canal and not worry about anything. You can just walk the street, especially on New Year's, and there were still vehicles coming after 8 p.m.
So they didn't put up the steel barricades that they had there for protection? Why? Can somebody explain that? Can somebody explain why? Here are the images of the individual in the truck. This is the truck itself that was used. You can see bullet holes there in the back of the truck. And again, why was this vehicle allowed to drive down this busy street anyway? There are places all over my home city here in Tampa, and probably your home city, that are meant for pedestrian walking. And there are iron barricades to prevent anyone. Sometimes maybe it's a terrorist suspect. Maybe it's just some grandmother who thinks she's driving down a road, but to prevent anybody from going through those areas. And it gives you great peace and peace of mind as a parent, just let your kids run around and everything, knowing that there's not going to be a car flying down the street. New Orleans attacker has been identified as 42-year-old Shazmood Din Jabbar, who had an ISIS flag. So, I mean, listen, guys, the FBI is saying this was a terrorist act. This individual is clearly somebody who, if you're flying an ISIS flag, is connected with ISIS, right? You'd have to assume that is not, and these terrorist attacks are something that have happened on American soil multiple times before, or have been foiled multiple times before. How long until the FBI says that they knew the suspect, right? You can set your watch by it. We also know that the rented truck contained explosives. He was wearing full body armor. We know why the FBI originally said this is not a terror attack. Well, because Joe Biden's still technically in charge of the country. Fox News has retracted an earlier claim that the truck crossed the border in Eagle Pass, Texas. Actually, the truck crossed the border on Eagle Pass, Texas on November 16th. So it still did cross the border, but it wasn't 2 days ago, as Fox News reported. Again, breaking news environment here.
According to federal sources, the suspect drove a truck with that Texas license plate, okay? So this is just coming into our newsroom. This is from Griff Jenkins and David Spunt working their federal sources on this. The suspect drives that truck with a Texas license plate right through Bourbon Street. According to their sources, to Spunt and Jenkins, this person came through Eagle Pass, Texas 2 days ago, okay? So we're gonna leave that up on your screen. And these are just those new photos. I just keep thinking, you know, from covering these things.
So again, Fox has corrected that by saying that they came through, this truck did come through Eagle Pass, Texas, not 2 days ago, but in November. So after the presidential election in November 16th. We'll see if that is relevant. This the truck was rented in Turo. Here's the photo of the Ford electric truck, ladies and gentlemen. And for some reason, New Orleans did not use their hydraulic steel barriers. It makes absolutely no sense to me. Fox News, again, has retracted the reporting that the truck just crossed from Mexico. Maybe some people thinking this could be cartel violence or something like that. But again, the man was found with body armor, explosives, and an ISIS flag. So pretty clear what the motive is here, right? It's clear. This is obviously terrorism. Joe Biden doesn't seem concerned about this at all. Biden on New Orleans, you got my statement. I'll have more to say. I've spoken to every member of the agencies. Anger and frustration. Donald Trump saying, well, I said that criminals coming in are far worse than the criminals we have in our own country. Statement is constantly refuted by Democrats and the fake news media. Turned out to be true. The crime rate in our country is at a level that nobody has ever seen before. Our hearts will go out to the innocent victims and loved ones and the brave officers in New Orleans Police Department. The Trump administration will fully support the city of New Orleans. They will investigate to recover from this pure act of evil. This is President Trump sounding off the FBI, saying this morning the individual drove the car into the crowd of people on Bourbon Street. We are working with our partners to investigate this as an act of terrorism. So that's the FBI. At time of recording, what we know here and what has been released from the police department in New Orleans, and there's a lot of wrong information about this stuff, and people always get it wrong, so we wait, gather all the information, and get it right, is Shazmood Din Jabbar is the individual, and that he was carrying an ISIS flag in his truck. The truck also had explosives in it, and he was kitted out with military tactical gear and started firing once he crashed his vehicle. So an act of absolute and pure evil, something completely sick. Barricades were not up. Why? So he attacked. No, did he know the barricades were not up? Did they know? The truck had crossed into the U.S. and Mexico border last month. Why wouldn't you put the barricades up, especially on New Year's Eve, which has got to be one of the all-time highest population densities of this location? It's called hardening the target, right? So you harden the target. You make it so that somebody can't drive or carry a weapon through these areas where there's tons of people, right? Use vehicles as weapons in this type of circumstance. But ladies and gentlemen, the gunman and the terrorist is dead. 10 Americans. Pray for their families. We're going to be following up with this breaking story. I cannot wait. We must have order back in this country, law and order. We must have Trump back in this country, President Trump back in this country, and people who are actual adults in charge. who can close the border, and who can actually arrest the terrorists, and who will create the type of vectors of punishment where this kind of stuff doesn't happen anymore, right? So what happens with this guy's cellular and mobile devices, the Trump assassins, all these people, like what happens with their mobile devices, what happens with all their computers, what happens with all their hard drives, you never hear anything about them ever again. Poof, gone. No, it's time to actually learn who are they talking with, who are they coordinating with, what's actually going on here. Because at this point, everybody in this country is in danger. These 6 sociopaths and the people who refuse to protect us. I cannot wait 19 days to have Trump back in the chair. Ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy Benny. Like, share, and subscribe, and pray, please, for the people of New Orleans and those who lost their lives and the dozens who are injured.